everybody, and welcome to Moms on a Mission. This episode is brought to you by our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean, and Full Moon Protocol, which provides all natural detoxification from parasitic conditions due to the food we eat. And it also fights inflammation. Go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. Our guest today is a Tulsa native and has stood for freedom as he served in the U.S. Army and was deployed to Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. He later served his local community as a law enforcement officer and then pursued law and now has a law degree from TU, the University of Tulsa. Since he is bored with all those things, apparently he needed to pick up another job, and now he serves as a councilman on our Tulsa City Council as well. And wherever his path has taken him, freedom has been something that he has stood for. And so we want to welcome today to Moms on a Mission, Grant Miller.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, Grant. For those who don't know you, we have listeners from all over the nation. So for those who don't know you, could you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, you did a pretty good job in the rundown there. I was a veteran, or I am a veteran. I served in the Army.
Thank you for your service, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course. Went on to law enforcement, and then decided to kind of jump into business. Started some insurance agencies with my childhood best friend. We grew those. Ended up purchasing a couple of additional independent agencies. Started one from scratch. And then when I was in the insurance field, I recognized a need for certain processes to be better. So I helped develop a technology platform for the insurance industry, went around, fundraised it, started building some clientele, and then ended up selling it to a mid-sized technology firm that kind of concentrated on insurance. And from there, I decided to kind of pursue my dream of, graduating from law school. I have a family, I have a wife, and we have 2 kids together. And so it was really never feasible for me to like drop everything and go to law school. But at that point, I kind of had the ability to do that. And so I went ahead to pursue that. And my last semester, I decided for some crazy reason, like you mentioned, to go ahead and run for city council. I'm glad I did. It's just kind of a continuation of service. I thought it was a good way. I've always been interested in politics and decided to kind of get off the internet and get out there and really start getting involved.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that. I know that, General Flynn says local action makes a national impact. And, I was saying this on another podcast. I was just hoping that we could get a president back in who would create, law and order and protect us with policies that we used to have and fight inflation and things like that. And he said, no, it's local action that makes a national impact. And so, I'm so thrilled that you got involved and proud of the work you've done here in our city. And what an example to, everyone nationwide, male or female, mom or dad, to get involved and to stand up and speak the truth and stand for that.
Well, yeah, and I'm happy to, and that's absolutely right. I didn't realize before I started considering running for city council just the impact that it has. So everybody kind of gets focused on national politics, and you don't realize that the things that affect you on a daily basis really happen locally.
Yeah, and I'm sad to say that before 2020, I knew a little bit what was going on, but I didn't really pay attention and seek information out, because even locally in our city, and I suspect it can be like this all across America, that if you don't seek out the information, if you don't go to the city council meetings, if you're not, or watching it online, if you don't go to school board meetings, you just don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
Things happen, things get passed, policies get passed, and you don't like the repercussions, but you didn't even know about it to even stand up because
Right.
you didn't go. So
Yeah.
it's amazing, I think, what 2020 has done, for all of it, but for all of us. But so you clearly have a path of service. What led you to, pursue service, with your being a police officer and, being in the Army? Is there anything that led you into that path?
Well, so I grew up, as you mentioned, in Tulsa. I grew up, went to Rogers High School, and I lived with my grandmother. And right around then, the war was kind of kicking off, and so she always watched Fox News. And so on Fox News every day there was something about what was happening in Iraq, and it would show the troops. And I remember watching of course, I was in 8th grade when the towers came down, and then I remember, throughout the next 4 or 5 years, just watching, the amount of deaths that were happening, just seeing all of the I guess, the war in Iraq unfold. And so it became an interest of mine then. And, I didn't have a lot of direction as I was, getting toward the age of 18 where I could join. And so just given my upbringing and, how I'd been paying attention to that, I thought, let's just go join the army.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
just kind of came about like that.
Yeah, that's pretty simple, but yet I think that there are others who saw that and were like, I don't want to go there. That's dangerous. I mean, clearly you weren't afraid.
No, I mean, I think every like 18-year-old boy is pretty fearless, and so that can be turned into a positive or a negative. It can really hurt you or it can help you. It just happened to propel me toward that. I always looked up to and respected our military and just wanted to join that. I obviously knew I was probably going to deploy. So I think if we hadn't been in the middle of a conflict at the time, I probably would have been less likely to do it just because hey, I want to go fight for my country. I don't just want to go join the military and sit around,
Yeah.
So,
It's probably more action and not as boring. For
right.
sure. So,
right.
I mean, if you look at it that way,
Right.
well, what caused you to transition from law enforcement to become an attorney?
Well, so not an attorney yet, but
yeah, not an attorney, right?
Yes.
Yeah, you just graduated from law school.
Yes,
Pursuing that.
yes. Well, so when I got out of the military, I wanted to continue that service. And so, I was kind of looking for something paramilitary. I went and I started applying at police departments. And at the time, I didn't have a bachelor's degree, so TPD was out of the question. And the surrounding areas, they didn't really even pay a livable wage. And so I started applying, found a job in Kansas that paid pretty well. So I just wanted to kind of continue on in a military style profession, and transitioned out of that and into sales. And where I kind of got that business bug was in sales. You kind of learn that you can sort of direct your own future that way. The sky is really the limit. And so I did really well in sales, and my buddy just approached me and said, "Hey, he'd been working for Farmers Corporate for some time." He said, "Hey, they've got this program. Let's start an insurance agency." And I just jumped on it. So
wow, that's because you're fearless. So it tends to. I'm seeing a theme here. So
yeah.
It tends to work for you.
Yeah.
So did anybody ask you to run for city council, or how did that idea come to mind?
Well, no, so like I mentioned, I'd been, in the online forums, the political groups, and just the political debate groups, and you're going back and forth with people and you're arguing, about these different issues. And generally it's more on the federal level. And I connected with several different groups. So I don't know if you're probably familiar with Tulsa Parents Voice. And so I was in that. I was, following them. And I think at one point I had reached out when I was in school and said, hey, because they were kind of complaining about some of the groups, the spending and possible nefarious stuff going on within the Tulsa public schools. So I said, hey, what, if I could ever help out with anything, I haven't graduated law school and, I'm not a lawyer, but I can research and I can help with whatever I can help you with. And they said, yeah, well, when we come across something. And then that group ended up reaching out, or someone from that group ended up reaching out and saying, hey, or I said, hey, I'm thinking about kind of jumping in and maybe running for state house or, possibly city council or something. I just wasn't sure what yet. And they said, yeah, I think you'd be great on the city council. Let me introduce you to a couple of people. And it just kind of spread from there. I met with Women for Tulsa and some other groups, and they really got behind me and supported me running for city council. And we went and worked our butts off and, sweated, knocking doors and doing all of the things. We didn't raise a ton of money. We raised a little bit, but not a ton. So we're really frugal with it. And just that support meant a lot to me. If somebody gets behind me and says, hey, I'm going to support you in this, then you can bet that I'm going to put everything I have into it. And so
absolutely. What has it been like, since you've been there? I mean, I know people in Tulsa probably know, but just for our listeners, outside of the state of Oklahoma, what has it been like, and what's been, some of your challenges since you've been there?
Well, so you hear about like all the stories, how like the inside game is, and so I kind of had a preconceived notion going in that might be how it was, but I entered with an open mind, and I tried to talk to everybody there, all of the other city councilors and the mayor and everybody with an open mind that we could work collaboratively and get some things done. But it became clear pretty quickly that this is a very closed off group that is interested in what they're interested in, and whatever you have to bring to the table is, unless it's goes along with their agenda, they're not too interested or open to hearing about it. As you probably know, we're at this point, there's been some issues with Open Meetings Act, with open records, just people having closed door meetings. I'm a big proponent of transparency in government. I don't necessarily, so people will knock me because I might have comments turned off on a certain Facebook post or something like that, just because I don't want to deal with the defamation that comes, through those comments. But I'm not really interested in any counselor or mayor's personal life. I could care less about asking them about that or what's on their Facebook. I'm saying whenever we have a issue of city business that we want to talk about, that should always be open to the public. They should always be able to hear what's going on. We shouldn't have, 5 or 6 meetings prior to ever going in and calling an open meeting and having an agenda and going through that agenda and then ultimately having a vote on the topic. Because at least my perception of the process right now is everybody pretty much already knows how they're going to vote and has the information that they need prior to ever turning the cameras on and going through the agenda, which is a real problem in my opinion.
Well, you think about businesses and boards and anything like that. I mean, when you have somebody's money, you are accountable to share with them how they're spending your money. I mean, that is a responsibility.
Right.
I mean, we have to give them our money, but yet it is our money.
Right.
And they are responsible for sharing with us how it's spent so that we can speak up if we don't like the way it's being spent.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that's the, we have the Open Meetings Act and we have the Open Records Act so that people can see their government functioning. And if we are doing things, whether it be a city council, whether it be the state house, whether it be the federal government, if we're having meetings and conversations about how we're going to spend that money and about policy changes that we want to make behind closed doors, then what is really the purpose of the Open Meetings Act, right? I mean, people will hear the counter argument to this is, well, we have to be able to operate efficiently. So we can't go in there and have all of these, we have to have conversations prior to the open meeting. And then we can go in the open meetings and discuss all of these things. But the truth is that once you've already had all of those conversations, everybody who hears what they hear in the open meeting is missing all of the context that go into that, right? So they will say it's an efficiency thing. Well, we have to have these meetings and we have to come and get all the information from the city departments and from the different counselors. And, we have to do all of this. It's not true. It's just that we don't want to take the time and put in the effort that it's going to take to actually have all of these conversations in the open.
Because don't you think people would know more and might speak up and maybe protest or push back, or maybe not, depending on what the subject is, but it's just the principle of the matter that it's not your money and people should see some transparency and know what's happening with their money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if we're going to take taxes from people, and I understand taxes are a necessary evil. So if we are going to take taxes from people, and if we are going to spend their money, they deserve to know every single element of what went into the decision of how to spend their money. And it's not, money is extremely important, but it's not just money. There's also city policies and ordinance changes and eminent domain issues and a whole slew of things. The money's probably at the top of the pyramid there, but there's a whole slew of things below that should also be open to the public.
Yeah. So, and how has that been received?
Not well. The very first, not the very first thing that I noticed, but the very first thing that I could pretty much confirm was, you're probably aware, during one of our city council meetings, I was asking about a specific project that I've had a problem with from the beginning, which is the Gilcrease Museum. It was a problem from the start. They told people that they put on the ballot for people to vote for a $65 million project, which is the Gilcrease expansion and renovation was what it was supposed to be. And then they as they get into the gill, this is the story. As they get into the gill crease, they realize that there's a lot more problems with it that need to be fixed. And so they come back and they say, well, actually, on second thought, we actually need to tear this thing down and rebuild a brand new one. And by the way, the budget's going to be, I think they said 110 million or something like that. That in of itself is a problem for me for two reasons. One, how did you not know that this thing needed to be torn down and rebuilt before you sent that for people to vote on? So you had all these experts come in and look at the building and decide what needed to be done with it. And they said, it's going to be 65 million. Yeah, let's put it on the ballot. How, with all of these experts combing through this building, did you not realize that they had all of these other problems that were actually going to cost a lot more? So I have a hard time buying that. But even if that were true, what we should do then is come back and say, okay, we're going to put 110 on the ballot now, and you can re-vote on this project. But instead they have a thing called the Brown Amendment. So they're allowed to, if they follow a certain procedure, which is like publication in two papers, I believe, at least 2 weeks apart. So the Tulsa World and I think the Eagle, they post, in the very back in the little ads section. They have to do that. Then they have to wait, I think, 2 weeks. And I could be off a little bit on these requirements, but it's generally right. Wait a couple of weeks and then do a press conference, which is the press conference that nobody attends. They do it on the 14th floor and nobody ever pays attention. And as long as they do that, then there can be a vote for the city council to make this amendment to the ordinance, which can completely change the nature of the project. So you put one thing in front of the voters, then you go do this little process, and then all of a sudden you can go and spend twice as much money without a second approval. And I don't like that at all. I don't like the fact that that can be done. So that's problem number one, or that's problem number two. Problem number one being, how did you not know in the first place? So
wow. And
oh,
go ahead.
Sorry, so that was a long-winded way to get to. So I'm sitting in a meeting, I'm chairing the Urban and Economic Development Committee meeting, and they're wanting to give another $10 million after increasing the budget to 140 million or something like that from the original 65. And we had voted, or we're getting ready to vote, I can't recall, to push another $10 million into this project. I'm the only one who voted no on that. And so when we started talking about homelessness, I thought, well, what could we have done with that $10 million to help solve this homelessness problem? So I asked that to one of the experts that was sitting at the table. How far would this $10 million go, or what could we do with this $10 million to help solve the problem of homelessness? And I noticed that one of the city councilors kind of smirks and like rolls her eyes, picks up her phone and starts texting. Then another councilor picks up her phone and starts texting. And I immediately know, okay, I've seen everybody texting, which I have a problem with in the first place, but that's for their constituents to decide. If they want somebody who's going to sit there and text during meetings and not pay attention or whatever, that's not my problem. But my problem is when you start talking about city business quietly with a quorum of the council present, right? And I see that as a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So I see this happening. I kind of jot down the time, and then immediately after the meeting, I turn in like a handwritten Open Records Request Act for those text messages. And it turns out they did say $10 million for Gill Crease funding. Miller is ridiculous. And the whole news story came out as like basically that I had my feelings hurt that they called me ridiculous. But the real story is these three councilors were talking about city business among a quorum of the council. And this is indicative of just the willingness to say things behind closed doors or inside of a closed session about city business. This is a widespread problem, and this is just indicative of that problem.
Well, clearly they don't want to be held accountable, and clearly they don't care if the people of Tulsa know what they're saying, and it's ridiculous, and it's really just wrong. I mean, I've known you long enough, which isn't super long, to know that your feelings aren't going to get hurt very easily.
No.
So, but I do find it completely disturbing that it's like this good old boy or good old gal network, and you're saying, hey, this is what the rules say, this is what the law says, why are we not doing this? And it's like nobody wants to have you hold them accountable.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately what it is, just a lack of, they've been doing this for so long this way that it's just they'll do it right on camera, right in front of everybody. Like that's how bold they are in having these private conversations and doing these things. They don't care if the cameras are on them, right in the middle of an open session, right among the quorum of the council. That just tells you how comfortable they are in that kind of, activity.
Wow. And is there not one person on that council who will stand up and support the truth and the accountability? Like not one?
I mean, I don't want to like speak ill of some of the people on the council they're good people. I like them personally, and
Sure.
I think that they do good things for the city, and so I don't want to like accuse somebody of trying to hide anything. But I do think there is a lack of willingness or a lack of courage to stand up and say, "Hey, this was not the right thing." So when all of that happened and it started coming out, the request from the attorney who ended up filing the lawsuit on it was, here's what I would like. I would like for you to say that this was the wrong thing to do. I would like for you to change the council rules so that there's no texting about city business among the quorum of the council. And then I would like you to pass some kind of a resolution to that effect. Very simple. Doesn't cost the city anything. It's just a statement to the public that says, hey, we recognize this is a problem and we're going to fix it. That should be a no-brainer, right? They should have just done that. Instead, they dig their heels in and say, no, we'll just go through this whole lawsuit and this whole process rather than just admit that we shouldn't be texting about city business in the middle of a meeting.
And who's paying for that lawsuit?
Well, ultimately the taxpayers. I mean, ultimately the taxpayers will pay for that. Right now it's $50,000, I think was the original amount that was allocated for it, if I remember correctly.
That in and of itself should just show you the lack of concern and care for the taxpayers' dollar. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me, what helps you? I know what we talk about on Moms on a Mission a lot of times has to do with education, but sometimes it's just about what's happening nationally and how, really we need to all join together and stand for truth and accountability. And whether you're a mom or a dad, whether it's a school, whether it's city council, but where do you derive the power to make you, unafraid and just to stand for truth relentlessly and not to cowtail and cower down when cower to the threats or, name calling? I mean, that's clearly one of Alinsky's best forms of rules for radicalism is 15. He shares 15 ideas on, and one of them is calling names and making it a personal attack. And people don't like to be made fun of, he said, and so you'll beat them that way. So it seems like you're experiencing that right now.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the attacks. There's some really terrible. People have called in, cut my electric off while I was down in Oklahoma City out of town. Pretended to be me, gave my account number, turned the electric off. I had to call in. My electric was off in the 100-degree weather. My kid's there. We've had animal skulls left on the porch. Just nasty messages to my wife, nasty messages to me. To answer your question, I don't really know. I guess I just, I kind of talked about how I would be online in these groups, right? And that would happen all of the time. Like it would just be like name calling. And I would try to keep just as much as I could. I would try to keep just a logical, just stay on point, and just make the logical points. But it was just never ending relentless. So maybe part of it is just through that process over a year or 2 years of just arguing with people and being called those names over and over, it just kind of loses its, you call somebody something over and over, eventually you're just like, whatever, right. Same thing. So maybe that's part of it. And then just my general life experiences, you go into the Army, you get beat down by your drill sergeants, you get, by your superiors. That's just part of being in the military. And then you go into, I went into the law enforcement. And so you've got always suspects or criminals or people that you're dealing with are regularly calling you names, and you have to keep calm and stay professional and do all of that. And so I think just a combination of my life experience just allows me to be able to just kind of let this stuff roll off. I mean, I knew that it would happen. Again, it's worse than I thought that it would be. But it just doesn't affect me. It's, at the end of the day, I guess I'm just reconciled. It's just, whatever happens to me because I stood up and did the right thing, I'm okay with it.
Yeah. And when you look through history and you look at anybody who stood up and made a true difference, that happened. I mean, resistance happens. And I mean, if you don't experience that, that's probably more of a problem, but because, you know, you're wondering if, are you truly standing if you're not seeing resistance anywhere, you know? So, and I'm so grateful that you kind of are, you know, have this, you know, that you've been anesthetized, you know, with your life prior to this, and being in the military, you're not fighting about taxpayer dollars. I mean, it's a life and death situation. Right. And so, I mean, you kind of were prepared for that.
Yeah, it definitely, I'm sure it definitely helps out. And, I don't know, you know, at the end of the day, who, you know, there are going to be people that hate me when this is over, and that's okay. And there will be just as many, hopefully, people that will say, oh, that's a good guy, you know? And
Absolutely.
so whether it ruins my reputation with half the people in the community and lets the other half know that I stood up for them, you know, that's fine with me.
Well, the interesting thing is that generally, as it relates to issues that are conservative, I mean, there's usually more of us than there are of them, but the left is a little bit noisier.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and they're fairly organized as well. And so I think that's part of the issue, is just getting the majority to wake up, show up, speak up, you know, and participate and support, you know, these truths that we're all fighting for.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you'd be, you know, a lot of times it is a left and right thing. So you've got the extreme left, that's just kind of really nasty, and they do these types of things that I'm talking about. But you would be very surprised. It's not as much left and right as you might think. You know, I've got a lot of common ground with Democrats out there who are just common sense Democrats. They just they want what's best for people, and they might align with some of the more of the ideas of the Democrat, you know, party, but they aren't this just vile far left like extremist like some of the folks that I've come across.
Well, you've seen some Democrats leave the party as the party has been drifting to this radical agenda, and especially in Oklahoma, some of them are more moderate, and they're like, hey, you know, morally we're not okay with this.
Right.
And I mean, there just is no other place to go than to come over to the Republican side. But yeah, I have to agree. I've seen that even, you know, in other states too, where, you know, you've seen it too nationally, where some senators and other politicians who are on the left say, you know, I don't align with this anymore. It's become too progressive, too radical. I'm not doing this anymore.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's at the end of the day, you're exactly right. It's the loud, the very loudest ones are the furthest left, and that's unfortunate, because I think we probably all have a lot more common ground than we realize. But that radical side of things is allowing everybody to get sidetracked and creating these culture wars. They're just, you know, that now we have to fight, because you can't just allow that to be the narrative. I mean, that can't be. We can't, you know, I don't know what all topics you want to get into here, but we can't just allow these types of radical things that probably we're talking about here to just take over our entire culture.
Right. And that's what our last podcast, we just talked with the folks from OCPA here in Oklahoma, and that's what they're fighting, is the culture war and standing up. And that's what we're just talking about. How can people get engaged? What empowers people to stand up and not, you know, be afraid of being targeted and things of that nature? But that's what it's going to take to create change, because now it's drifted so far that now we're having battles, and we have to stand up at this point.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you've got, you know, I recently posted something, you know, I guess supporting Ryan Walters and what he's recently done. And that got a lot of backlash. I didn't post that because I cared to take a side in the culture war necessarily. I posted it because I think that he did the right thing. The schools are failing. We've got radicals kind of taking over and running the school system. And at the end of the day, we just needed new, you know, Dr. Gist was just not getting the job done. So, I mean, whatever you think of her politically or whatever, at the end of the day, yes. And guess what? She's a lifelong Republican. So this was not partisan.
Right.
She was just simply not getting the job done, and he did the right thing. He stood up, he put the pressure on, she resigned, and now we've got somebody new who hopefully will come in and do the right things. So.
And again, nowhere else in a business could you see somebody perform like that and not be asked to leave or not have pressure put on them. I mean, you just, and here it is, it's our money now. It's our money and it's our children. It's our state. It's our failing, statistics nationally. Right. And I'm grateful that he has that same kind of thing that you have in you, where you just stand up for the truth no matter what the cost. And that's really our mission at Moms on a Mission, is to encourage folks to educate, awake, and then activate and do something. I mean, you don't have to run for city council, although that's great. You don't have to run for, mayor or anything, but just affect the people in your circle, educate yourself. And if you're changing diapers and that's your world, I mean, I know your wife is momming it, but I mean, she has a circle of influence too. And if you educate yourself and you just speak to the folks in your circle, if everybody did that, we would make such a massive difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and then there's the people like my wife, for example. She would rather just stay out of the fray. Like some people are just averse to conflict of any kind, and that's, I understand that. That's just the way that some people are, but it's unfortunate that kind of like, hey, just let people be, has gotten us to where we are. I think we were talking about that before we started here, is like, this all happened under all of our noses. Mm-hmm. Just like this all occurred over the last decade or 2 decades. And just slowly crept up on us. And then it was like, wow, how did we get here? So now you're fighting a much bigger battle.
Yeah. So, and instead of being proactive, now we're having to be reactive and try to make up for lost ground that we just didn't, really know about. Right. What would you say to moms who are listening today who, need to be emboldened to take a stand, and they haven't done that because, they're afraid, and they like, or they're maybe conflict adverse, they're just, they don't like conflict. And what would you say to them that could help them take a stand?
Oh, that's a really tough one. So like, moms have a hard job already. I know that, taking care of the kids and doing the mom thing that duty. They do. Right. So, I mean, I would just say that probably more people agree with you than don't. They're just not saying it either. Right. So, don't be afraid. It's easy to just say don't be afraid, but like, there are more people that agree with you than don't. So, make sure that your kid, while you're taking care of the kids on the daily tasks, getting them to school and just making sure that they're taken care of psychologically and physically and all of that, most times, unless you homeschool, your kids are going out into the world, and you want to make sure that the people taking care of them, like the teachers at Metro or TPS or wherever they might be going, are not leading them down a path that you wouldn't lead them down yourself. And if you don't speak out and you don't make sure that all of your, like you said, your circle, your sphere of influence is aware, if they're not aware of it, then the teachers aren't aware of it. And if everybody's just kind of sleeping on this issue, all of the teaching and all of the care that you're doing at home can be undone the very same day that you're doing it. Wow. And so you got to make sure that isn't happening. The only way to do that is to, like you said, educate your sphere of influence and make sure that you're all going to the PTA meetings, you're all going to the school board meetings, and you're all speaking about your values and what you expect the teachers and the school board and the administration to be doing in your community. You've got to speak up about that. Otherwise, all of your hard work at home can go down the drain every single day when you send them in.
That's good. That's good. And just FYI, you're not a terrorist if you show up at the school board meetings and speak out.
Who was it that was it the ACLU, or who put the Moms for Liberty on the
right. Terrorist list? I feel like that you're right. I think it was the ACLU. I'm trying to remember. But yeah, they were put on that list, which is such a joke. I mean, they're the most kind, loving, but again, it goes back to that theme of holding people accountable and being responsible with the money that's not yours, it's others. And that's another thing, Moms for Liberty and Women for Tulsa here in Tulsa. I mean, you can join these groups while your kids are at school, go to a quick meeting or what have you, and just become educated. Yeah. And, you don't have to run for anything, but you could just at least at the very minimum become educated and be able to speak intelligently, in your sphere of influence.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, and importantly, get out and vote in these local elections. Not a lot of people do, unless it's during a bigger election or a general, you got, what did we have come out for the Improve Our Tulsa vote? Like, I don't even remember what the number was, but it was pitiful. It was like 16%.
Yeah, it was, I think it was below 20.
Yeah. And, same thing. A lot of times when school boards are on their own, you'll see the same type of turnout, and you just got to get out there. And if you got to get out there and you got to take the power back. And that's what really has to happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on today. Thanks for sharing your story. And I'm praying and hoping that your story will encourage other parents, moms and dads and grandparents to do what they can do, to not allow this situation to drift even, more to the left, and to allow the radical agenda to perpetuate through our nation. So thank you for sharing your story. Of course. And then I also want to say thank you so much for listening today. And we would love to connect with you at Moms on a Mission. If you just email us with your questions or comments at moms@momsonamission.net. That's moms@momsonamission.net. And then you can also check us out at momsonamission.net. All of our shows are there, but we'd really love for you to follow us on Rumble. That is the main uncensored platform that we love, but we're on all of them. And so if you just click the follow button on Rumble, and then you'll get notified of new episodes. So thank you so much for doing that. And thanks for listening. In light of recent bank volatility and skyrocketing inflation, diversification is a must. That's why I use my good friend Andrew Sorcini at Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Beverly Hills Precious Metals makes it so easy to diversify. I personally ordered some silver and it arrived on my doorstep just a few days later. They make it so easy. And if you're not ready to do that and you just want to ask a few questions, they're there for you too. I personally got some silver and also am rolling over some of my IRA. You can actually roll over your IRA and have it be backed by silver and gold. So if you don't have any extra money to invest in silver and gold, rolling over a 401k or an IRA, or even part of it, if you just want to try it at first, just for a little bit, you can do that as well. So go to bh-pm.com today and ask all your questions. You can connect with somebody. And like I said, you can just get some information at first if you want and pray about it, and then get back with them to roll over part of your IRA or all of it, or order some gold and silver. That's bh-pm.com. and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. Hey, everybody. Did you know that recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed? Parasites are actually the cause of many health problems such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health. Moms on a Mission encourages you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all natural detoxification and fights inflammation. And the supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively. I know after I took Full Moon Protocol, I had more energy. To order your Full Moon Protocol today, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. According to leading sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle getting a good night's rest. That's why Moms on a Mission loves MyPillow. MyPillow makes amazing pillows, sheets, mattress toppers, robes, towels, literally almost everything you need for a good night's sleep. They also make dog beds for your dogs. So by going to mypillow.com, typing in the code MISSION, you not only receive a high quality product, but you're supporting Moms on a Mission and this podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you agree with it, you believe in it, and you want to support Moms on a Mission, then go to mypillow.com today and order some high quality products, and just type in the code MISSION at checkout and you can save up to 66% off. That's mypillow.com, code MISSION.
Since 2014, Organic Body Essentials has offered clean, simple, certified organic skincare. Our organic face-to-feet and federally compliant hemp and pet products are manufactured under USDA and FDA guidelines. Our products are inspired by God, using plants He created. In Ezekiel 47:12, it says, "The fruit is for food and the leaves for healing." We believe in the power of God to heal, so we pray over our products and for our customers. Our therapy in a bottle approach has been widely received, and our customers' testimonials continue to inspire us. You can find us at organicbodyessentials.com and obe.organicbodyessentials.com. Please feel welcome to reach out with questions. Use coupon code MISSION at checkout for a discount. Thank you for your support by using Mission at checkout to benefit moms on a mission and their quest to reestablish traditional values in our education system and empowerment for a healthy lifestyle.